Captain Jake Sullivan was having a good day. The coffee was hot, the engines were running smooth, and his crew was happy. The TCS Liberty had been exploring space for 18 months now, and they had seen some amazing things. Strange planets, weird animals, and alien ruins that made everyone excited. Jake sat in his captain's chair on the bridge, looking out at the stars. His navigator, Lisa Park, was checking their position on the big screen. Tony Martinez, the chief engineer, was reading reports from the engine room. Amy Chin, the communications officer, was listening to radio signals from nearby systems. "Captain," Lisa said, "we're getting close to that new star system. The one with all the metal-rich planets." "Good," Jake replied. "The science team will love those mineral deposits. Amy, any word from the other ships?" Amy nodded. All 11 ships are staying in formation. Captain Rodriguez on the Frontier says his geology team is getting excited about the asteroid belt ahead. Jake smiled. The human exploration fleet was small but skilled, 12 ships total, all converted from civilian vessels. They had scientists, engineers, and explorers, but they were not soldiers. Their mission was simple: map new areas of space, study alien life, and make friends with anyone they met. "Captain," Amy said suddenly, "I'm picking up something strange." "Multiple contacts ahead, big ones." Lisa checked her sensors. "Confirmed? I count 200 ships, all in formation. They're blocking our path to the star system." Jake put down his coffee mug. 200 ships? That's a lot. Are they friendly?" "Unknown," Lisa answered. "But they're definitely waiting for us." Tony looked up from his engineering station. "Captain, those ships are putting out some serious energy readings, very advanced technology. Much more advanced than anything we've seen out here." Jake nodded. "Amy, try to contact them." Standard first contact protocol. Amy worked at her station for a few minutes. "Captain, I'm getting a response. They're sending a transmission." "It's coming through now." The main screen flickered, then showed the image of an alien creature. It looked like it was made of living crystal, with sharp edges and bright blue light flowing through its body. Its voice was cold and commanding. "Primitive species designated human, you have entered sovereign Zephyrian space. I am Admiral Korath of the Imperial Fleet. You will surrender your vessels immediately for processing, or face the might of our armada." The bridge went quiet. Jake looked at his crew, then back at the screen. "Well, that's not very friendly." Admiral Korath continued, speaking, "You have one standard time unit to comply. Failure to surrender will result in the destruction of your vessels." The transmission ended. Jake's crew looked at him, waiting for orders. "Lisa, how many ships did you say they have?" 200. "Captain, all of them are bigger than our ships. Much bigger." Jake rubbed his chin. "Amy, what do we know about these Zephyrians?" "Nothing, Captain. First contact. But their technology looks impressive. Very clean energy signatures, no pollution, advanced materials." Tony was studying his readings. "Captain, their ships are beautiful. Like works of art. I've never seen anything like them, but ... But what, Tony?" "Well, sir, they're using pure energy weapons. Plasma, cannons, particle beams, that sort of thing. Very elegant, but ... But what?" Tony shrugged. "Where I come from, energy weapons are what you use when you want to look fancy. If you want to actually hurt something, you use solid projectiles." Jake thought about this. In human space, warfare was common. Every species had learned to build ships that could survive almost anything. Energy weapons were pretty, but they rarely did serious damage to properly armored vessels. "Amy, send a message to the fleet. Tell all captains to stay calm and ready for anything. Also, let them know we might have some entertainment coming up." Amy sent the message, then looked back at Jake. "Captain, Admiral Korath is demanding an immediate response." Jake stood up and straightened his uniform. "Amy, open a channel to the Admiral." The alien's face appeared on the screen again. Jake smiled politely. "Admiral Korath, this is Captain Jake Sullivan of the Terran Colonial Service. We appreciate your warm welcome to your space. However, we're going to have to respectfully decline your generous offer of surrender. The Admiral's crystalline features shifted in what might have been surprise. You refuse? We do, Jake said calmly. You see, we're explorers and scientists. We're not here to cause trouble. We just want to study those interesting planets in your star system and maybe learn about your people. You dare to refuse the Zephyrian Empire? The Admiral demanded. Do you not understand your situation? You have 12 primitive vessels against 200 of our finest warships. Jake looked around at his crew. Lisa was trying not to laugh. Tony was grinning. Amy was shaking her head. Admiral, we understand perfectly. You have more ships than us. Your technology is very impressive, but we're still not going to surrender. Then you have chosen destruction, the Admiral said coldly. Prepare to witness the power of the Zephyrian Empire. The transmission ended. Jake sat back down and picked up his coffee. Well, that could have gone better, he said. Lisa was watching. Her sensors. Captain, the alien fleet is moving into attack formation. They're powering up weapons. How long until they're in range? About 10 minutes, sir, Jake nodded. Amy, send a message to Earth Command. Let them know we've made contact. With a new species. Friendly contact is still possible, but they seem a bit aggressive. Should I request backup, Captain? Jake thought about it. No, not yet. Let's see what these Zephyrians can do first. Tony, what's our shield status? Shields at full power, Captain. Hull armor is in perfect condition. All defensive systems are online. Good, Lisa. Move us into a defensive formation with the other ships. Nothing threatening, just good positioning. The human fleet began to move. The 12 ships spread out in a loose formation that looked casual but was actually very tactical. Each ship could support the others, and they had clear lines of retreat if needed. Jake watched the Zephyrian fleet approaching. The alien ships were indeed beautiful, with smooth curves and glowing energy fields. They moved with perfect precision, like a dance. They're very organized, Lisa observed. Too organized, Tony said. Look at that formation. It's perfect for parades, but not so good for actual fighting. Amy was listening to communications between the alien ships. Captain, they're coordinating their attack. It sounds like they're planning to fire all at once. A full fleet barrage, Jake mused. That's going to be quite a light show. Captain, Lisa said, shouldn't we be worried? 200 ships firing at once could do a lot of damage. Jake sipped his coffee. Lisa, where are you from? New Texas. Sir. And Tony, you're from where? Detroit Colony, Captain. Amy? Mars, sir, born and raised? Jake nodded. And I'm from Earth. We've all seen real warfare. The Centauri War, the vegan conflict, the problems with the outer colonies. We know what weapons look like when they're built to kill. He gestured at the approaching alien fleet. Those are beautiful ships with elegant weapons. But they're not built by people who've had to fight for survival. They're built by people who've been safe for a very long time. The alien fleet was almost in range now. Jake could see the weapons charging up, glowing brighter and brighter. All ships prepare. For fireworks, he announced over the fleet channel. This is going to be interesting. The Zephyrian fleet opened fire. The space around the human fleet exploded with light. 200 Zephyrian ships fired at once, sending streams of bright plasma and energy beams toward the 12 human vessels. The display was magnificent, like a rainbow made of deadly fire. Colors that had no names danced across the darkness of space. Admiral Korath watched from his command ship, the Starbreaker. He expected to see the human vessels torn apart, their hulls cracking open like eggs. Instead, he saw something that made no sense at all. The human ships sat perfectly still in the middle of the light show. They did not explode. They did not even move. The energy beams hit them and simply disappeared, as if the weapons were doing nothing at all. Report, Korath demanded. Commander Zenth checked his instruments twice before speaking. Admiral, all weapons fired successfully. Direct. Hits on all 12 human vessels, but what? No damage, sir. None at all. Their ships are completely intact. Korath stared at the display. This was impossible. The combined firepower of 200 ships should have turned those primitive vessels into dust. Yet there they were, sitting calmly in space as if nothing had happened, aboard the TCS Liberty. Captain Jake Sullivan was finishing his coffee. The bridge was quiet except for the gentle hum of the engines. Outside the windows, the last of the alien energy beams faded away. "Well, that was pretty," Lisa Park said from her navigation station. Tony Martinez looked up from his engineering console. "Captain, I've got to admit, that was one of the most beautiful weapons displays I've ever seen. The color patterns were amazing." "Any damage anywhere in the fleet?" Jake asked. Amy Chun checked her communications board. "Let's see, Captain Rodriguez on the Frontier reports no damage. Captain Williams on the Explorer says her coffee got cold, but that might not be related to the attack. All other ships report 0 damage." Jake nodded. "What about our shields?" "Shields absorbed most of it," Tony reported. "We're down to about 97% power. Should be back to full in about 5 minutes. 3%, Jake mused. "That's actually not bad for 200 ships firing at once." Lisa was studying her sensor readings. "Captain, the alien fleet seems confused. They're not moving. Just sitting there. Can you blame them?" Jake asked. "They just threw everything they had at us and got nothing." "I'd be confused too." Admiral Korath was indeed confused. In his 300 years of service to the Zephyrian Empire, he had never seen anything like this. Their weapons were the most advanced in their region of space. They had conquered dozens of worlds with those same plasma cannons and energy beams. "Commander Zenth," he said slowly, "run a full diagnostic on all weapons systems." "Already done, Admiral. All systems are functioning perfectly." The weapons fired correctly, the energy output was normal, and the targeting was precise. "Then why are those ships still intact?" Research Commander Thale spoke up from the science station. "Admiral, I've been analyzing the human vessels during the attack. The energy signatures are very strange." "Explain." "Well, sir, when our weapons hit their ships, the energy didn't disappear. It was converted into something else. Light, heat, and some kind of harmless radiation. It's as if their ships are designed to absorb weapon energy and turn it into something safe." Korath felt a chill run through his crystalline body. "Are you saying their defensive systems are that advanced?" "I'm saying their defensive systems are designed for a completely different kind of warfare than ours, Admiral. Look at their shield generators. They're not trying to deflect energy like our shields do. They're trying to absorb it and process it." Commander Zenth was studying the tactical display. "Admiral, the human ships are sending another transmission." "Put it through." Captain Sullivan's face appeared on the main screen. He looked relaxed and friendly, as if he had not just survived an attack from 200 warships. "Admiral Korath, thank you for that demonstration. Your weapons are truly impressive. The light show was beautiful, and my crew enjoyed watching it. However, we're starting to worry about your power supplies. Are you sure you want to use that much energy on a display?" Korath found his voice. "Your ships should be destroyed." "How are you still alive?" Jake smiled. "Well, Admiral, that's an interesting question. You see, where we come from, space is a bit more dangerous than it seems to be in your region. We've had to learn to build ships that can survive almost anything. Impossible. No species has defensive technology that advanced. Maybe not in your neighborhood," Jake admitted. "But in our part of the galaxy, if you can't defend yourself, you don't live long enough to explore new places." Tony Martinez's voice came over the ship's intercom. "Captain, should I show them what our ships can actually do?" Jake thought about it. "Just a small demonstration, Tony. Something harmless." "Understood, Captain." The TCS Liberty began to move. It was not the clumsy movement Admiral Korath expected from a primitive vessel. The ship moved with perfect grace, turning and spinning in ways that seemed impossible for something so large. "Their maneuvering systems," Commander Zenth whispered. "Look at the acceleration curves. They're pulling forces that should crush any living thing inside." "Inertial dampening technology," Research Commander Thale observed. "Far more advanced than ours." The Liberty came to a complete stop, then fired a single projectile into empty space. The projectile was small, just a piece of metal, but it moved so fast that it was invisible. The only sign of its passage was the shockwave it created, which every sensor in the Zephyrian fleet detected. That projectile just reached 12% of light speed, Thale reported in amazement, in less than a second. Admiral Korath stared at the readings. What kind of species develops weapons that fast? Captain Sullivan's voice came over the communication channel again. Admiral, that wasn't a weapon. That was a mining charge. We use those to break up asteroids for ore collection. A mining charge, Korath repeated. Our actual weapons are quite a bit more energetic, Jake explained. But we prefer not to use them unless absolutely necessary. Bad for diplomatic relations. The bridge of the Starbreaker was silent. Every officer stared at the tactical display, trying to understand what they were facing. Admiral, Research Commander Thale said quietly, I recommend we reconsider our approach to these humans. Why? Because, sir, if that was a mining tool, I don't want to see what their military equipment can do. Captain Sullivan continued talking. Admiral, we're not here to fight. We're explorers and scientists. We want to learn about your people and your civilization. Your empire has lasted 3,000 years, which is impressive. In our galaxy, that's almost impossible to achieve. Why is it impossible? Korath asked. Too much warfare, Jake replied. Too many species with too many different ideas about how things should work. It keeps everyone busy. Admiral Korath was beginning to understand. These humans came from a violent galaxy, where constant warfare had forced every species to develop incredible defensive technology. They had learned to build ships that could survive anything because anything less meant extinction. Captain Sullivan, he said slowly, what are your intentions in our space? Same as always, Admiral. We want to explore. We want to study those interesting planets in your star system. We want to meet your people and learn about your culture. We might even want to establish some trade routes if you're interested. And if we refuse? Jake shrugged. Then we'll go somewhere else. The galaxy is a big place and there are lots of interesting things to see. We're not here to cause trouble. Korath looked around his bridge. His officers were all watching him, waiting for orders. He had started this encounter expecting to deal with primitive aliens who would surrender immediately. Instead, he had found a species that made his most advanced weapons look like children's toys. Captain Sullivan, he said. Finally, perhaps we should talk. I'd like that, Admiral. Talking is much better than shooting. Would you be willing to come aboard my ship? Jake smiled. Of course, but I should warn you, Admiral. I drink a lot of coffee. I hope you have some coffee? It's a human drink. Very popular. I'll bring some samples. Admiral Korath had no idea what coffee was, but he was beginning to think that learning about human customs might be more important than he had realized. Captain Jake Sullivan stepped off the small transport shuttle and onto the deck of the Zephyrian flagship Starbreaker. The alien ship was even more impressive from the inside than it had looked from outside. Everything was made of smooth, flowing crystal that seemed to glow with its own inner light. The walls curved gracefully, and soft blue light moved through them like water. Welcome aboard the Starbreaker, Admiral Korath said, approaching with several of his officers. Up close, the Admiral was even more striking. His body was made of living crystal that shifted and changed color as he moved. His voice had a musical quality, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Thank you for having me, Jake replied, looking around with genuine interest. This is beautiful. I've never seen anything like it. Our ships are grown, not built, Korath explained. We use living crystal that shapes itself according to our needs. It takes many years to grow a ship like this one, Jake nodded. Explains the organic look. Very elegant. Much nicer than our ships. Admiral Korath led Jake through the corridors of the ship. Other Zephyrians stopped to stare at the human visitor. Some seemed curious, others appeared worried. Jake smiled and waved at them, which seemed to confuse them even more. Your crew seems nervous, Jake observed. They have never seen a human before, Korath admitted. Until today, we thought we were the most advanced species in this region of space. It might still be, Jake said. "We're just visitors here. We come from a very different part of the galaxy." They reached the Admiral's private quarters, a large room with crystal walls that showed the stars outside. The furniture was made of the same living crystal as the rest of the ship, but it was shaped to be comfortable. Korath gestured for Jake. "To sit, I must ask you about your ships," Korath said. "How is it possible that our weapons had no effect on them?" Jake settled into the crystal chair, which adjusted itself to fit his body. "Well, Admiral, that's a long story. Where I come from, every species has been fighting for thousands of years. If you want to survive, you need to build ships that can take a beating. But surely no species has weapons powerful enough to require such strong defenses." He pulled out a small device from his pocket. "This is a communicator. Standard human technology." "Amy, can you hear me?" Amy Chun's voice came through clearly. "Yes, Captain. How are things going?" "Fine. Can you patch me through to the Colonial Defense Database? I want to show Admiral Korath something." "One moment, Captain." A holographic display appeared above Jake's communicator. It showed a map of human space, with thousands of star systems marked in different colors. "This is our part of the galaxy," Jake explained. "Each color represents a different species. Red for the Vorthan Collective, green for the Nexus Swarm, blue for the Void Hunters, and so on." Admiral Korath stared at the display. "There are so many species in such a small area." "About 3,000 intelligent species in our local group," Jake confirmed. "Most of them are not very friendly." 3,000? Korath's crystal body flickered with surprise. "In our entire region of space, there are only about 50 species, and most of them are peaceful. That's why you've been able to build such a stable empire," Jake said. "You haven't had to worry about constant warfare." Jake touched the communicator again. "Amy, can you show the Admiral what a Vorthan battleship looks like?" The hologram changed to show a massive dark ship covered in weapon ports. It was at least 10 times the size of the Starbreaker, and it looked like it had been built for no purpose other than destruction. "This is a Vorthan heavy cruiser," Jake explained. "They use quantum singularity weapons that can destroy entire planets. We've been fighting them for about 200 years." Korath studied the image. "How do you defend against weapons like that?" "Very carefully," Jake said. "And with really good armor. Amy, show him a human battleship." The hologram changed, again showing a human warship. It was not as large as the Vorthan vessel, but it looked incredibly tough. The hull was thick and angular, covered in armor plating and defensive systems. "That's the TCS Invincible," Jake said. "She's fought in 17 major battles and has never been seriously damaged. Our exploration ships are built using the same basic technology, just smaller and with fewer weapons." "I begin to understand," Korath said slowly. "Your ships are designed to survive in a very dangerous environment." "Exactly. What you attacked us with today would be considered light defensive weapons in our part of space. Pleasant to look at, but not very effective against properly armored ships." Admiral Korath was quiet for a long moment. "Captain Sullivan, I owe you an apology. I assumed you were primitive because your technology looked different from ours." "No need to apologize," Jake said. "It's a natural mistake. Your technology is actually very impressive. Those plasma weapons of yours are works of art. Very efficient, very clean. In our space, most weapons are dirty and crude but effective. Then why did you not destroy us when we attacked?" Jake smiled. "Because we're not here to fight, Admiral. We're explorers. Our mission is to learn about new places and new people. Fighting only happens when we have no other choice." "But surely you were angry when we threatened you?" "Angry? No. Confused, maybe. A little amused. You have to understand, Admiral, we've dealt with species that make threats like that all the time. It's usually just bluster." Korath's crystal body changed to a deeper blue color. "I am beginning to realize how sheltered our empire has been. We have never encountered true warriors before." "You're not warriors," Jake agreed. "You're builders. You've created something beautiful here. A stable civilization that's lasted 3,000 years. That's much more impressive than anything we've achieved, but we are weak." "You're not weak," Jake said firmly. You're just different. You've had the luxury of developing art and science and philosophy without constantly worrying about survival. That's something to be proud of. Admiral Korath stood and walked to the crystal wall, looking out at the stars. Captain, what do you think will happen when other species from your galaxy discover our region of space? Jake considered the question. Carefully, that depends on which species find you first. Some of them are reasonable, like us, others ... He paused. Others are not so reasonable, the void hunters you mentioned. Among others, the Nexus swarm is probably the worst. They turn entire star systems into factory worlds. They don't negotiate, they just consume everything they find. Korath turned back to Jake. How long do we have? Hard to say. Could be years, could be decades. But eventually someone will come looking. The galaxy is getting smaller all the time. Then we need to prepare, Jake nodded. You do. But not by building bigger weapons. That's not your strength. Then how? By making allies, by learning about the galaxy beyond your borders, by understanding what's out there before it finds you. Admiral. Korath sat back down. Would humanity be willing to help us? I think so, Jake said. We're always looking for new friends. And honestly, your people have something we need. What is that? Stability, peace, the ability to build something beautiful and make it last. In our part of the galaxy, we're so busy fighting that we sometimes forget why we're fighting in the first place. Korath's crystal body shifted to a warmer golden color. Perhaps we can help each other. I think we can, Jake agreed. But first, we need to learn more about each other. I'd like to invite you to visit one of our ships. See how we live, how we work. I would like that very much, Jake stood up. There's something else, Admiral. My crew is very curious about your people. They've never seen living crystal beings before. Would it be possible for some of them to visit your ship? Of course. I think my crew would benefit from meeting more humans. Good. Cultural exchange is always the best way to start a friendship. As they walked back through the corridors of the Starbreaker, Jake noticed that the Zephyrian crew members seemed less nervous. Some of them were even approaching to get a closer look at the human visitor. Admiral, Jake said, I have to ask. What made you decide to attack us in the first place? Korath's color shifted to what Jake was learning was embarrassment. Standard Imperial protocol. When we encounter unknown species, we demand surrender first. Most species comply immediately. Has anyone ever refused before? Never, you were. The first, Jake laughed. Well, I guess we're not most species. No, Admiral Korath agreed. You are definitely not most species. As they reached the docking bay where Jake's shuttle waited, the Admiral extended one crystal hand. Captain Sullivan, I believe this is the beginning of a very interesting friendship. Jake shook the offered hand, surprised by how warm the crystal felt. I think you're right, Admiral. This is going to be very interesting indeed. Admiral Korath had never been inside a human ship before. As he stepped aboard the TCS Liberty, he was struck by how different it was from Zephyrian vessels. Where his ships were made of flowing crystal and soft curves, this ship was all straight. Lines and hard angles, everything looked practical and strong. Welcome to the Liberty, Captain Sullivan said, leading the Admiral through the airlock. She's not as pretty as your ships, but she gets the job done. It is very different, Korath admitted, looking around. The walls were made of thick metal, and everything seemed designed for strength rather than beauty. How old is this vessel? About 15 years, Jake replied. She started life as a cargo hauler, but we converted her for exploration. Most of our ships have similar histories. They walked through the corridors, passing crew members who nodded politely to their Admiral visitor. Korath noticed that the humans seemed relaxed and friendly, not at all like the warriors he had expected. Your crew seems very calm, he observed. Why? Wouldn't they be? Jake asked. We're explorers, not soldiers. Most of us joined the colonial service to see new places and meet new people. They stopped at the engineering section where Tony Martinez was working on some equipment. He looked up and smiled when he saw them. Admiral, this is our chief engineer, Tony Martinez, Jake said. Tony, Admiral Korath wanted to see how our ships work. Tony wiped his hands on a cloth and approached them. Pleased to meet you, Admiral. Beautiful ships you have out there. I've never seen anything like them. Thank you, Korath replied. I'm curious about your technology. How do your shields work? Tony's face lit up. Oh, that's a great question. Our shields don't work like most species. Instead of trying to stop energy, we absorb it and convert it into something harmless. He led them to a console covered with displays and controls. See, most civilizations try to deflect weapon energy away from their ships. But we learned that if you can capture that energy and turn it into light or heat, it can't hurt you. That is why our weapons had no effect, Korath said with understanding. Exactly. Your plasma beams are very efficient, but they're still just energy. Our shields eat energy for breakfast. Jake patted Tony on the shoulder. Tony here designed most of our defensive upgrades. He's the reason we can survive in dangerous parts of space. It wasn't just me, Tony said modestly. The whole human defense industry worked on this stuff. We had to, or we'd all be dead. Admiral Korath studied the engineering displays. What about solid projectiles? Surely those would be more effective. Tony nodded. Oh yeah, kinetic weapons are much more dangerous. That's why all our ships have thick armor plating. But most civilizations in our area stopped using projectiles centuries ago. Why? Because energy weapons are easier to control and aim. Plus, they look more impressive. But when you really want to hurt something, nothing beats a chunk of metal moving really fast. They continued the tour, visiting the bridge where Lisa Park showed the Admiral their navigation systems, and the communications center where Amy Shun demonstrated their long-range sensors. Each human they met was friendly and eager to share their knowledge. Finally, they reached the mess hall where several crew members were eating lunch. Jake led Korath to a table and brought him a cup of the dark liquid he had mentioned before. This is coffee, Jake explained. It's a mild stimulant that most humans enjoy. Korath took a careful sip. The liquid was bitter but somehow pleasant. It is quite good. We have nothing like this. Coffee is one of humanity's greatest discoveries, Jake said with a smile, right up there with fire and the wheel. As they sat drinking coffee, other crew members began to approach their table. Soon, Admiral Korath found himself surrounded by curious humans asking questions about his people and his empire. Is it true that your ships grow themselves? Asked Dr. Sarah Adams, the ship's chief scientist. Yes, Korath replied. We plant crystal seeds in special gardens, and over many years they grow into ships. That's amazing, said Lieutenant Ben Walker. How long does it take? For a ship like the Starbreaker, about 50 years. The humans looked impressed. 50 years, Jake repeated. We build our ships in about 6 months. But they last much longer than ours, Korath said. Some of our oldest vessels are over 1,000 years old and still functioning perfectly. Dr. Adams leaned forward. Admiral, what is your society like? How do you govern so many worlds? Korath thought about how to explain. We have what you might call a benevolent monarchy. Each world is governed by a council of crystals, and all councils report to the Emperor. How do you handle disagreements? Asked Amy Chun. We rarely have them, Korath admitted. Our people are naturally peaceful. We prefer to discuss problems until we find solutions that work for everyone. That must be nice, said Tony Martinez. In our space, disagreements usually lead to shooting. The conversation continued for over an hour. Admiral Korath found himself fascinated by human culture. They were so different from his people, yet they seemed genuinely interested in learning about the Zephyrian Empire. Admiral, Dr. Adams said, would it be possible for some of our scientists to visit your worlds? We would love to study your crystal technology. I think that could be arranged, Korath replied. Our scientists would also be very interested in your defensive systems. Jake stood up. Admiral, there's one more thing I'd like to show you. Something that might help you understand why we're here. He led Korath to the ship's observation deck, a large room with transparent walls that offered a clear view of space. Outside, they could see the Zephyrian fleet still in formation and the other human ships nearby. This is why we explore, Jake said, gesturing at the stars. Look at all those suns, all those worlds. Each one might have something new to teach us. Each one might have people we haven't met yet. Korath looked out at the vast expanse of space. But it is also dangerous. You told me about the hostile species in your region. Yes, it's dangerous, Jake agreed, but it's also beautiful. And if we don't explore, if we don't reach out to other species, we'll never learn anything new. Is that why you came here? To learn? Partly. But also because we think your people have something important to offer the galaxy. What is that? Jake turned to face the Admiral. Wisdom, peace, the knowledge of how to build something stable and beautiful. Most species in our part of space are so busy fighting that they've forgotten how to create. Korath's crystal body shifted to a thoughtful purple color. And what can your people offer us? Protection. Knowledge of what's out there beyond your borders, and maybe most importantly, the understanding that the galaxy is much bigger and more dangerous than you realized. They stood in comfortable silence for several minutes, watching the stars. Captain, Korath said finally, I have a proposal. I'm listening. What if we established a formal alliance? Your people could help us understand the broader galaxy, and we could offer you a safe haven in our space. Jake smiled. I think my government would be very interested in that idea. But first, we need to get to know each other better. Agreed. Perhaps we could start with a joint exploration mission? Some of your ships and some of mine working together to map the regions between our territories. That's a great idea, Jake said. We could learn a lot from each other. Admiral Korath extended his crystal hand. Then let us begin this partnership, Captain Sullivan. Jake shook the offered hand warmly. Welcome to the galaxy, Admiral. It's going to be quite an adventure. As they stood there on the observation deck, looking out at the stars, both leaders knew that this was the beginning of something important. The Zephyrian Empire's long isolation was about to end, and humanity had found new friends in a dangerous galaxy outside. The two fleets began to move closer together, no longer as potential enemies, but as partners preparing for whatever challenges the universe might throw at them. 6 months had passed since the first meeting between humans and Zephyrians. The small exploration fleet had grown into something much larger. Now, 20 human ships worked alongside 30 Zephyrian vessels, mapping the space between their two regions of the galaxy. Captain Jake Sullivan stood on the bridge of the TCS Liberty, watching the combined fleet move through hyperspace. It was an impressive sight. The elegant crystal ships of the Zephyrians flew in perfect formation with the sturdy metal vessels of humanity. Captain, Amy Chun reported from her communications station, Admiral Korath is requesting a meeting. He says he has something important to discuss. Tell him I'll be right over, Jake replied. In the past 6 months, he had spent almost as much time on Zephyrian ships as on his own. The two species had become close friends, sharing knowledge and learning from each other. An hour later, Jake found himself in Admiral Korath's private quarters aboard the Starbreaker. The crystal walls showed images of the star systems they had explored together. Each one told a story of cooperation and discovery. Jake, Korath said, using the informal name that had become common between them, I have received a message from the Emperor. He wants to meet you. Jake raised his eyebrows. The Emperor himself? That's quite an honor. It is more than an honor, Korath explained. The Emperor has never met with an alien species before. You would be the first non-Zephyrian to visit the Imperial Palace. What brought this on? Korath's crystal body shifted to a pleased golden color. Our joint missions have been very successful. We have discovered 12 new star systems, made contact with 3 peaceful species, and established trade routes that benefit everyone. The Emperor is impressed. Jake smiled. Our crews have worked well together. Your people are natural explorers, even if they didn't know it before. And your people have taught us so much about survival in a dangerous galaxy. We are no longer the sheltered empire we once were. Over the past months, the Zephyrians had learned quickly. Human engineers had helped them improve their ship defenses, while Zephyrian scientists had shared their advanced crystal technology with humanity. The result was ships that were both beautiful and practical. "There is something else," Korath continued. "We have detected ships approaching from the direction of your galaxy, 3 vessels moving very fast." Jake's expression became serious. "3 ships? What do the sensors tell us about them? They are not human." "The energy signatures are different, very different." Jake stood up and walked to the crystal wall, looking out at space. "Admiral, I think our peaceful exploration period might be coming to an end. You believe these ships are hostile?" "In my experience, when unknown ships approach that fast, they're usually not coming to say hello." Admiral Korath activated his communication system. "All ships, this is Admiral Korath. We have detected 3 unknown vessels approaching our position. Prepare for possible contact." Within minutes, the combined fleet had moved into a defensive formation. The human ships took positions at the front, their heavy armor and shields ready to absorb any attack. The Zephyrian vessels moved behind them, their improved defenses and elegant weapons providing support. "Admiral," came a voice over the communication system. "This is Captain Rodriguez on the frontier. I'm picking up weapon signatures on those approaching ships. They look like Nexus swarm technology." Jake and Korath exchanged glances. "The Nexus swarm," Jake said grimly. "I was hoping we'd have more time before they found this region." "Are they as dangerous as you described?" "Worse. They don't negotiate, they don't retreat, and they turn everything they conquer into factory worlds." The 3 alien ships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. They were ugly, functional vessels covered in weapon ports and industrial equipment. They looked like flying factories designed for destruction. "Incoming transmission," Amy Chun reported from the Liberty. The main screen flickered, showing a creature. That looked like a mechanical spider made of dark metal. Its voice was harsh and emotionless. "Unknown vessels, you are in territory claimed by the Nexus swarm. Surrender immediately for processing or be destroyed." Jake looked at Admiral Korath. "Well, that's familiar. Seems like everyone in this part of space likes to make demands." Before either leader could respond, the Nexus ships opened fire. Unlike the elegant energy beams of the Zephyrians, these weapons were brutal and efficient. Streams of plasma and metal projectiles filled space. The human ships absorbed the attack easily, their shields glowing as they converted the weapon energy into harmless light. The Zephyrian vessels, with their improved defenses, also survived without damage. "Return fire," Jake ordered calmly. The combined fleet responded instantly. Human kinetic weapons launched projectiles at incredible speed, while Zephyrian plasma cannons added their own elegant destruction to the mix. The result was devastating. One of the Nexus ships exploded immediately, torn apart by the combined firepower. The other 2 tried to retreat, but the human ships were faster. Within minutes, all 3 enemy vessels were destroyed. "Well, Admiral," Korath said, watching the debris field on his screen. "That was educational." "That was just a scouting force," Jake warned. "The real Nexus fleet will be much larger." "How much larger?" "Probably 1,000 ships or more." "They don't do anything small." Admiral Korath was quiet for a moment. "Jake, I need to ask you something important." "Go ahead." "When the Nexus swarm comes in force, will humanity stand with us?" Jake smiled. "Admiral, we've been friends and allies for 6 months. We've explored the galaxy together, shared our knowledge, and learned from each other. Did you really think we'd abandon you now?" "I hope not, but I needed to be certain." "You can be certain. Besides, the Nexus swarm is humanity's problem too. If they conquer your space, they'll eventually come for ours." Over the next several hours, messages flew between the human and Zephyrian governments. Emergency sessions were held, plans were made, and decisions were reached. By the end of the day, both species had committed to a full military alliance. "The Emperor has agreed to the alliance," Admiral Korath announced to the combined fleet. "He is also granting special permission for human ships to operate freely in Zephyrian space." Captain Rodriguez's voice came over the communication system. "Admiral, I've got good news. The Colonial Defense Force is sending the Third Fleet to assist. Should be here in about 2 weeks. How many ships? Jake asked. 50 heavy cruisers, 20 battleships, and about 100 support vessels. Admiral Korath looked impressed. That is a substantial force. It's a start, Jake replied. But we'll need more than just ships. We'll need strategy, coordination, and a lot of luck. Over the following days, the combined fleet worked frantically to prepare for the coming battle. Human engineers helped upgrade Zephyrian weapons, while Zephyrian scientists improved human shield technology. The two species shared everything they knew about warfare, tactics, and survival. You know, Tony Martinez said to Jake during one of their planning sessions, 6 months ago, we came here just to explore some planets and maybe make some new friends. And now we're preparing for the biggest battle in Zephyrian history, Jake replied. Do you regret it? Jake looked out at the combined fleet, humans and Zephyrians working together to prepare for war. No, I don't regret it. We found something out here that's worth fighting for. What's that? Proof that different species can work together. Proof that the galaxy doesn't have to be a place where everyone fights everyone else. Admiral Korath approached them, his crystal body glowing with determination. Jake, the Emperor wants to speak with you personally. He's offering you the position of Joint Fleet Commander for the coming battle. Jake was surprised. Joint Command. With you? Joint Command with me? Korath confirmed. Human tactics and Zephyrian strategy working together. I accept, Jake said, without hesitation. As the days passed, more ships arrived from both human and Zephyrian space. Soon, nearly 300 vessels were gathered in the system, the largest combined fleet either species had ever assembled. Admiral, Amy Chun reported, long-range sensors are detecting a massive fleet approaching. Nexus swarm, just as predicted. Estimated arrival in 6 hours. Jake and Admiral Korath stood together on the bridge of the Liberty, watching the preparations. Their crews moved with practiced efficiency, humans and Zephyrians working side by side. Are you ready for this? Jake asked his friend. Admiral Korath's crystal body shifted to a confident blue color. I am ready to defend my people and my new allies. Then let's show the Nexus swarm what happens when they threaten our friends. The combined fleet moved into battle formation, humans and Zephyrians united against a common enemy. Whatever happened next, both species knew they would face it together.